Hello Internet, I am the Hero of Julios once again with another One Piece video. This video will be talking about the equally sized box to an actual manga volume, the starter decks of the One Piece card game. I know, a little dramatic flair. I do love that the boxes are sized to look like manga. It does take up a bit of space on my shelf, but I'm not going to be keeping these boxes. I'm just going to be opening them up for this video. So, let's get into it right away, actually. We'll just start with the red starter deck, the Straw Hat Crew. So every starter deck comes with a little instruction manual that folds out into a mat that you can learn how to play the game on. But for the most part, the box is pretty much empty, leaving you with just the bare minimum of what you need. So you pop that right out, and you can slide off the plastic covering, and we will start off with showing off the Dawn cards that we get. You get 10 Dawn cards. This is your mana system, your memory gauge, your well, Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't really have a resource system. Your lands from Magic the Gathering. By suspending, or should I say resting, a Dawn, you can use it to activate and play cards from out the game. So, you get 10 of those because you need 10 of them. The other card you need outside of your deck is your leader card. The leader card for this one is Luffy. His ability can activate once per turn, giving this leader or one of your characters one of your rested Dawn. Under normal circumstances, a rested Dawn is completely useless. It's already been used up to pay for something, but in the red starter deck, we can give our rested Dawn to some of our characters or our leader in order to power them up with that plus 1000 that you get when a Dawn is attached to you. I'm going to save these super rares that are at the top of the box for the end of the video, but we're going to start off with Usopp. Usopp has 2 to play, 2000 power, 1000 counter. When he has 2 Dawn attached to him while attacking, your opponent cannot activate a blocker of a character that has 5000 or more power during this battle. He also has the lovely trigger effect of playing straight from your life pile if you got hit. So what you want to do is, well, you probably want to activate 3 Dawn on him, but 2 Dawn will be enough if you're trying to go for something smaller. And he basically just prevents blockers that are stronger than him from stopping him. Our next card is Vanilla Karu. It's just a 1 to play, 3000 power, 1000 counter. He's considered an animal and a member of the Alabasta series of cards. So unfortunately, any cards that have Straw Hat Crew as a requirement are not going to work with Karu. But, most starter decks do require some kind of little filler that you can swap out for more powerful cards later. Speaking of more powerful cards, this Sanji is one of my favorite cards in the game right now. He has a 2 cost to play, 4000 power. When he has 2 Dawn attached to him, though, he gains Rush. Thanks to the Luffy card, you can give one of your rested Dawn that you use to pay for Sanji, and then maybe one of your active Dawn, so that it costs 1 less Dawn. Altogether, though, if you don't have any special abilities, it'll cost you 4 Dawn to use Sanji at his full potential. Either way, Sanji is 6000 power with 2 Dawn attached, allowing him to attack most enemy leaders pretty easily. Next card in the red starter deck is the Fishman himself, Jinbei. 3 to play, 5000 power. If he has a Dawn attached to him while attacking, one of our characters or our leader, other than this card, gain 1000 power during the turn. So Jinbei goes for the swing, and then he can power someone up absolutely free. Next up, we have Tony Chopper, 1 cost to play, 1000 power, and blocker. There's really nothing else to say about him, though instead of just being Straw Hat Crew, he does count as an animal. Jinbei, being a member of the Straw Hat Crew, counts as a fishman, so not a lot of strategies involving that yet, but the game is still young, so we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But for now, just having a blocker at all is a good idea, so I would say if you are going to replace Chopper in your red starter deck, replace him with a blocker. This Nami card, 1 to play, 1000 power, 1000 counter, I think is the second most important card to the starter deck strategy. Her activate main ability gives 1 rested Dawn card to your leader or one of your characters, which is pretty much the same ability as your leader Luffy. This would allow you to combine with that Sanji from earlier in order to play him for only 2 Dawn. Then Nami and Luffy both give him the rested Dawn that you used to play him, and then he can, go for a rush. Following up, we have Nico Robin, the other lady of the Straw Hat Crew. 3 to play, 5,000 power, 1,000 counter. Just a generic vanilla, but 5,000 power. Most leaders in the game have 5,000 attack, so she'll be able to hit a leader without actually needing any power ups. Then we have Vivi, who is 2 cost to play, 4,000 power, 1,000 counter. Unfortunately, she is just Alabasta. She is not considered a member of the Straw Hat Crew in this card. As a result, you're probably going to replace her with something else in order to create more Straw Hat synergy. But as a starter deck card goes, 2 to play, so she's pretty early in the game, and she only needs 1 Dawn to be a threat to the enemy leader, so... And then finally, your big beat stick, 4 to play, 6,000 power, 1,000 counter, it's Frankie. And at 6,000 power, your opponent's going to need to put a little more effort into stopping his attacks from hitting the enemy leader. Finally, we have Brook, the musician of the Straw Hats, 2 cost to play, 3,000 power, 2,000 as a counter. And his on-play ability, give up to 2 rested Dawn cards to your leader or one of your characters. So, basically the 2 Dawn you used to play Brook, you can then give that Dawn to someone else, effectively making him free, which is nice. There's only 2 in the starter deck, so you'll need to buy 2 if you want to run 4 of them. But aside from that, this is the Soul King himself, and it's pretty cool card art. So next up are our event cards. We only get 2 of each of these, so you're gonna need to look into getting some more. But we got Guard Point. For only 1 Dawn, we can have a counter power that powers up a leader or character 3,000 power during this battle. Our next event card is Gum Gum Jet Pistol. Its main effect, you KO an opponent's character with 6,000 power or less, and its trigger does the exact same thing. It is a 4 cost, but 4 cost to get rid of 6,000 power isn't such a bad trade-off. Most of the time you'll want to see this in your life stack. Again, the starter deck only comes with 2, so if you want 4, you're going to need to buy 2 of the red starter deck. Our final event is Diable Jambe, which has a 1 cost to play and basically makes a leader or character card, you choose one of them, and your opponent cannot activate blocker if that leader or character attacks during this turn. Its trigger effect KOs a blocker character with a cost of 3 or less. This is very nice for a finishing blow. I would say even if your goal is not a Straw Hat character type thing, I would put at least one of these in your red deck so that you are guaranteed to swing for the final blow without a blocker stopping you. And this is not an event, but this is a stage card. We got the Thousand Sunny. It costs 2 to put on the board, but after that you can activate its main once per turn. You can rest the stage to give a Straw Hat leader or character 1,000 power during the turn. So, you can only activate it once because there's no way to active your stage once you've rested it, for now. But once you're able to, then this thing will get really strong. Again, only 2 in the starter deck, so you're going to need to get a hold of a couple, 2 starter decks to get a full playset. Now finally, we can talk about the super rares. We got Roanoa Zoro, 3 cost to play, 5,000 power. While he has a Dawn on him, he gains 1,000 power. So if you give him a Dawn, he'll go up to 7,000 power with 1 Dawn. However, during your opponent's turn, if he was, in a rested stage, your opponent would need 6,000 power in order to actually defeat him, because the Dawn is not limited to your turn or your opponent's turn. And finally, the leader of the Straw Hat Crew himself, Monkey D. Luffy. 5 cost to play, 6,000 power, but he has Rush, so you can just plop him down and strike at your opponent. And if he has 2 Dawn attached to him, your opponent cannot activate blocker during this battle, so your opponent won't be able to stop Luffy's attack if you get some Dawn on him. And with that, we have the red starter deck. What's the main strategy here? Well, simply put, it is to strike fast, hard, and make sure your opponent isn't able to strike back, using, Chopper as a blocker to protect you. You basically want to win in as few turns as possible, by using your rested Dawn with Luffy and Nami in order to power up any characters you do put to board. So, personally, I'm going to be running the red starter deck because I think red is probably going to be my main color. It was my main color in Digimon, but I guess only time will tell. And after a mystical magical transformation, we now have the green starter deck, this one featuring the worst generation. Just like the red starter deck, it comes with an instruction manual and some Dawn cards in order to help you get started, as well as a 50 card deck and a leader card featuring this leader, Eustace Captain Kidd. So he is 5,000 power, 5 life, and you can activate once per turn. You can activate his main ability. By resting 3 Dawn, you can trash a card from your hand and set this leader to active. So at the cost of 3 Dawn and a card in hand, you can attack twice per turn with Eustace. This is great because most of the cards in the green deck are about active and resting your cards rapidly. However, there are still vanilla cards, of course. We got Vito here. 3 cost to play, 5,000 power, 1,000 counter. But we do have some cards with abilities, like your Rogue. 2 cost to play, 3,000 power, 1,000 counter. If a Dawn is attached to him and we have 3 or more characters, he gains 2,000 power. So if you have a nice big board set up, he has 5,000 power during your opponent's turn. During your turn, however, that Dawn will give him an extra 1,000, so he'll be at 6,000 power. It's very strong for a 2-cost card. There's only 2 in the starter deck, though, so if you want 4, you'll need to get a second starter deck. Next up, we have the all-important blocker, Capone Gang Beige. 1 cost to play, 1,000 power, but he is a blocker, so he'll be able to protect your other cards. And for 3 cost to play, 3,000 power, we got Killer. Now, he is also 1,000 counter, but what's more important is his on-play ability. We can KO an opponent's rested character with a cost of 3 or less. He also has the trigger that allows us to play him, so if you got struck by an opponent's character of 3 cost or less, and then Killer was the top card of your life stack, you could play him and immediately destroy whatever it was that hit you. He is also another card that there's only 2 of in the starter deck, so you'll have to get a second one. Next up, we have our Beat Stick, 4 cost to play, 6,000 power, 1,000 counter, Kobe. Kobe is a member of the Navy only, so he's not going to work with any of the worst generation cards, but he might be one of the first cards you replace once you get your actual booster packs opened. Our next card is our Searcher, Jewelry Bonnie. 1 cost to play, 1,000 power, 1,000 counter. You can activate her main effect by resting her and 1 Dawn. You can reveal 1 Supernova card out of the top 5 cards of your deck. You can look at the top 5 cards of your deck, then reveal a Supernova and add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. The big trade-off with Bonnie is, of course, you're going to, bottom deck 4 out of those 5 cards. But sometimes being able to get that 1 card you need is more important than losing the 4 that you probably wouldn't have seen in time. Then we have Scratchman Apu. 2 cost to play, 3,000 power, 2,000 counter. Very strong. For 1 Dawn, while attacking, you can rest one of your opponent's Dawn cards. At first, I did not think this was a great ability. I only wanted him for the 2,000 counter. But the more I've played the game, the more I've realized that being able to stop your opponent from having the Dawn they need for their counter cards is more imperative than I thought it would be. Speaking of imperative cards, you're going to want to get yourself 2 more copies of Basil Hawkins, because there's only 2 in this starter deck. 5 cost to play, 6,000 power, but when he has a Dawn attached to him, if this character battles an opponent's character, set this card as active. So Hawkins can destroy an opponent's card, like a character, then he can become active again and attack another character, or he can attack the leader. Regardless, Hawkins can attack twice, and he has 6,000 power. So, yeah, you're going to want a full play set of him if you're running a Supernova deck. Next we have the vanilla card Heat, 2 cost to play, 4,000 power, 1,000 counter. He's one of the Kid Pirates, so if you're running strictly a Captain Kid deck. We also have, on the Heart Pirate side, 1 cost to play, 3,000 power, 1,000 counter, Beppo. And let me tell you, I love this art. It's adorable. It's Beppo just apologizing because, he's Beppo. This is another very powerful card in the green starter deck. 4 cost to play, 5,000 power, 1,000 counter, Diaz Drake, or X Drake, depending on how you want to read it. If he has a Dawn attached to him during your turn, if this character is rested, your Supernova and Navy type leaders and characters gain 1,000 power. This does include himself, so you attach a Dawn to him, boosting him to 6,000 power. But when he swings to attack something, he is now rested, which means his power activates, putting him to 7,000 power for whatever it is he's trying to fight. The green starter deck also has its own event cards in the form of Scalpel, which has a 1 cost to play counter. Your leader or one of your characters gains 2,000 power during this battle, then set one of your Dawn cards as active. Its trigger effect lets you set up to 2 Dawn cards as active. Personally, not a big fan of its trigger, don't really see how it would be super necessary, but the counter effect allows this card to effectively pay for itself, allowing you to use it multiple times in a single combat if you needed to. We also have Repel, which is a 2 cost to play, but has a counter effect that gives one of your leaders 4,000 power, as well as one of your characters. Then you can set one of your Dawn cards as active. It doesn't fully pay for itself, but it would allow you to play Scalpel immediately after. Our final event card for the green starter deck is Straw Sword. It is a 2 cost to play, but it allows you to rest one of your opponent's characters. It does not specify any cost, so even the biggest or smallest of your opponent's characters are not safe from this. However, its trigger effect, if you have a Supernova type card, you can play a Supernova with a cost of 2 or less straight out of the hand. So, again, if you have cards like Veto who aren't, Supernova cards, these aren't going to be super useful. But if you deck out your deck, pun intended, with more Supernova cards, this card becomes infinitely better. Again, like a lot of good cards, there's only 2 in the starter deck, so keep that in mind when purchasing one. Finally, we have our 2 super rares in the form of Trafalgar Law, 5 cost to play, 6,000 power, 1,000 counter. His on-play ability lets us set a Supernova or Heart Pirate type card, character, with a cost of 5 or less to active, effectively allowing that card to swing twice or use its ability twice if we wanted to. And finally, representing the leader card of this deck, Eustace Captain Kidd. 7 cost to play, 7,000 power, making him the most expensive card in this starter deck. He has blocker. However, if he has a Dawn attached to him, at the end of your turn you can set him to active. So by putting a Dawn on him, you'll be able to attack, and then at the end of your turn, prepare him to block against your opponents. The point of the green starter deck seems to be using your abilities multiple times or being able to attack in rapid succession, especially with Captain Kidd. I fought one guy at the Super pre-release who his whole strategy was just put Dawn on Eustace Kidd and then swing twice with his ability. That was it. Didn't play any characters, didn't play any events, just swing twice every turn, and sadly enough, I was not able to stop that. So, yeah, that's the green starter deck. We're moving on from the red and green starter decks, and moving on to the blue starter deck, featuring the 7 Warlords of the Sea, with its main leader card, Crocodile. Just like all the other starter decks, we have Dawn cards to help us pay for our cards, and we also have an instruction manual to teach you how to play the game. The 10 Dawn cards are just generic Dawn that you use to pay for card effects. So let's start talking about the actual leader card. The leader for this deck is Crocodile, 5,000 power and 5 life. You can tell just by reading his effect exactly what kind of strategy blue is going for here. You can activate his main effect once per turn, Dawn -4, which means you got to put 4 Dawn back into the Dawn deck. You can return 1 character with a cost of 5 or less to the owner's hand. If you couldn't guess, blue is controlling. Blue is going to focus a lot on bouncing cards back to the hand or throwing them to the bottom of the deck. However, not all blue cards are going to do that in the starter deck because, well, some of them are just vanilla, like Edward Weevil here. 3 cost to play, 5,000 power, 1,000 counter. But he is a warlord, so he does fit in the deck. We also have Gecko Moria. 4 cost to play, 5,000 power, counter 1,000. On play, we can add a 7 Warlord of the Sea or Thriller Bark Pirate character card with a cost of 4 or less, other than Gecko Moria himself, from our trash to our hand. So, not all of them are about controlling your opponent's board. Some of them are about manipulating your own discard pile. There's only 2 Morias in this deck, though, so you'll have to keep that in mind. Speaking of 2 copies, we have 2 copies of Dracule Mihawk. 4 cost to play, 5,000 power, 2,000 counter. I think he's better off in your hand unless you really need to shuffle through your deck. If he has a Dawn attached to him when attacking, you can draw 2 cards and then trash 2 cards from your hand. So this will allow you to cycle through your deck a lot faster because, you'll draw 1 for your turn, but then you'll get to draw 2 more. It is the caveat of having to trash 2, but, it's the trade-offs we make in order to find what we're looking for. Next we have a Vanilla Jinbei. He is a 2 cost to play, 4,000 power, 1,000 counter. He's a vanilla, but he actually has a lot of text under him down here. He is a fishman, he is a 7 Warlord of the Sea, and he is a member of the Sun Pirates. Next up we have Trafalgar Law. He is a 1 cost to play, 1,000 power, no counter, but he's a blocker. So as a Warlord and a Heart Pirate, he is able to protect you by just taking a hit for you. Then we have the Searcher of this deck, Bartholomew Kuma. 2 cost to play, 3,000 power. On play, we look at the top 3 cards of our deck, and then return them to the top or bottom of the deck in any order. This is good. Knowledge is power, so knowing exactly what the next 3 cards in your deck are going to be is very helpful. And if it turns out none of them are useful, well, then you can take a chance by putting the 3 at the bottom of your deck and hoping that 4th card is something you can use. He also has the lovely trigger that allows us to play him straight out of the life pile, if we get hit. Then we have the illustrious Buggy-sama. 1 cost to play, 3,000 power, and a counter of 1,000. He is, in fact, one of the 7 Warlords of the Sea, post-timeskip, so fear him and his mighty nose. So I was saving this card so that I could talk about them together, so let's look at the Pacifista real quick. 4 cost to play, 6,000 power, 1,000 counter, but other than that, very vanilla. Otherwise, I would tell people to take this out of their deck. However, Sentamaru says otherwise. 3 cost to play, 4,000 power, counter 1,000, but if you have a Dawn attached to him, once per turn, you can activate his main ability. By making 2 of your Dawn rest, so effectively costing 3 altogether, you can play a Pacifista with a cost of 4 or less straight out of your deck, then shuffle your deck afterwards. Because of this, you could, for 3 Dawn, pull this Pacifista out of your deck. Not only would it make it cost 1 less, but now your deck is thinner, allowing you to pull a, card you need from your deck sooner. There's only 2 Sentamaru in the starter deck, though, so you will definitely need to try and get your hands on 2 more at some point if you're going to run a Pacifista-related strategy. Our next card is the most beautiful woman in the world, Boa Hancock. 3 cost to play, 1,000 power, 1,000 counter, and blocker. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, that's the same power as Trafalgar Law. Why does she cost 2 more? That's because she has the lovely trigger that lets you play her. So, you get hit, you take a life card, turns out to be Hancock, boom, straight to the board. Blocker, right there. And finally, for characters, we have Marshall D. Teach, Blackbeard. 4 cost to play, 4,000 power, 1,000 counter. On play, return a character with a cost of 3 or less to the owner's hand. So again, another bouncing effect, and there's only 2 of him in this deck as well, so keep that in mind when using this deck. But the bouncing effects don't stop there, because our event cards also do it. We got Sables. Main effect, return 1 character with a cost of 7 or less to the owner's hand. Its trigger does the exact same thing. 4 cost to get rid of 7 cost. Now, that's also the same as Crocodile's ability, only Crocodile can only do 5 or less. But you could combine Sables, which costs 4, with Crocodile's ability, which is Dawn -4. So you could pay the 4 to use Sable's to throw a 7-cost card away, then use Crocodile's ability, since that rested Dawn is useless to you, to get rid of a 5-cost enemy. You could effectively get rid of your opponent's board if you played enough cards in the right order. Then we also have this lovely counter thrust pad cannon. Sorry, was reading it a little backwards. 2 cost, but it is a counter. The counter effect returns one character with a cost of 3 or less to the owner's hand. The trigger also allows you to activate this ability. What's nice about this, though, and same with Sable's, is it doesn't say an opponent's character card. So, for example, we could block an attack with our Trafalgar Law, and then during the counter phase, activate Thrust Pad Cannon and throw Law back into our hand. The attack no longer has a target, so Law doesn't get destroyed, but the attack no longer, goes for the original target, so making it a whiff. Our final event we only get 2 copies of. It is the Love Love Mellow. 2 cost to play, counter. Your leader or one of your characters gains 4,000 power during this turn. Then you can draw a card if you have 3 or less cards in your hand. So the ideal time to play this is when you have 4 or less cards in hand. You'll get rid of Love Love Mellow, it'll set you to 3 cards, and then you'll get to draw. Finally, we have our 2 super rares for the starter deck. Don Quixote do Flamingo. 7 cost to play, 7,000 power. His on-play effect, we return a character with a cost of 7 or less to the owner's hand. Now, Sable's does the exact same thing for 3 less Dawn, however this puts a 7,000 power body on the board, so keep that in mind. I think this is one of the most powerful cards currently in the game, but that's only because 1 booster pack has come out so far. Our other super rare is the representation of our leader, Crocodile himself. 5 cost to play, 6,000 power with blocker. But if he has a Dawn on him, when blocking, we can place a character with a cost of 2 or less to the bottom of the owner's deck. So Crocodile blocks an attack, and he can just banish an opponent's 2 cost or less, or even one of ours if we really needed to. The blue starter deck strategy is all about control, making sure that your opponent doesn't get any of the good effects out of their cards, forcing them to maybe play card to card, or having to second guess whether or not they want to commit to something large on the board, knowing that you can send it away in an instant. Our final starter deck for now, and the 4th starter deck in the game, the purple starter deck, featuring the Animal Kingdom pirates and their dreaded leader, Kaido, the King of Beasts. I'm only saying it at this point because I've literally said it every other time, but like all starter decks, it comes with a instruction manual and 10 Dawn to help you get started. But the purple starter deck has the big man himself, Kaido. 5,000 power, 5 life. Activate main once per turn, Dawn -7. That's a lot of Dawn to give up. However, it trashes the top card of your opponent's life stack. So, your opponent's life stack is, the resource they need to stay alive. You have to get rid of it to win the game. But there's also useful cards in there that can be added to your opponent's hand. Getting rid of that, just sending it straight to the trash, is a very powerful ability. And since it is with, Dawn -7, you're not going to be able to use it right off the gun. However, it makes for a great finishing blow against your opponent. The first card we'll be talking about in the purple starter deck is Queen, the mad scientist of Kaido's crew. 5 cost to play, 6,000 power, 1,000 counter, and blocker. However, he has the on-play ability of Dawn -1, which allows us to draw 2 cards and then trash 1 from our hand. Those of you who play Yu-Gi-Oh! Are familiar with the card Graceful Charity, you know how strong that card was. So being able to draw 2 cards is always appreciated, even if you have to give up one of your cards to do so. But typically, if you're at the point where you can pay 5 Dawn, there's a couple cards in hand that you would rather just get rid of in order to get that extra card draw. There are only 2 queens in this deck, so you'll need to get your hands on some more if you want to run a full playset. Next up, we have Sasaki, 3 cost to play, 4,000 power, 1,000 counter. His on-play ability gives us a Dawn -1 in order to draw a card. So we're sacrificing a little bit of our, a little bit of our Dawn in order to get a card. It's up to you to decide whether or not that's a good effect. Me, I think it's a coin toss, very situational. Next we have the Vanilla Sheepshed. 2 cost to play, 4,000 power, 1,000 counter. Not really much else to say, just vanilla purple. He is a member of the Animal Kingdom Pirates, but he is also a Smile user. Next we have 2 copies of Jack. 3 cost to play, 4,000 power, 1,000 counter. His on-play ability lets us trash a card from our hand, maybe one of the cards Queen helped us draw, in order to add a card from our Dawn deck as active. So, if you, turn 3 you play Jack, you could activate his ability, trash a card in hand, you get a 4th Dawn, and now you're able to play something for 1 cost. Perhaps Jin Rummy here. 1 cost to play, 3,000 power, counter 1,000, but other than that, a vanilla card. This is the only 1 cost card in the purple starter deck, so this might be your only option to play on your first turn if you're going first. I think she's better off in your hand as her 1,000 counter, but who knows what kind of strategies your opponents are forcing you to make. Now this card, you only get 2 in the purple starter deck, so you'll need to get some more, but this guy's incredibly strong. This is Who's Who. He is a 3 cost to play, 3,000 power. On play, Dawn -1. KO an opponent's character with a cost of 3 or less. So he just comes to the board, insta-kills someone, and then, you can do what you want with him after that. However, what makes him even stronger is his trigger, which allows you to play him straight out of the life stack. Again, you only get 2 in the purple starter deck, but obviously it's because it's a very strong card. Now, every other starter deck has a 1 cost blocker with 1,000 power, but Kaido is a go big or go home kind of guy, so Black Maria here, with a 2 cost to play, 2,000 power, 1,000 counter, is also the blocker, but also the small blocker in Kaido's deck. So, yeah, you don't have a 1,000 blocker, but Black Maria can stop slightly smaller threats. Now, I was holding off on talking about this card because I wanted to talk about them together. We're going to start with page 1, 4 cost to play, 6,000 power, 1,000 counter. Just like the Pacifistas from the purple deck, or the blue deck, just like Kobe from the green deck. However, page 1 works very well with his sister, Ulti. Ulti is a 4 cost to play, 5,000 power, 2,000 counter. But her on play is a Dawn -1, which lets us play a page 1 with a play cost of 4 or less from our hand. So, you plop down Ulti, you get her little brother to come out, and you now have 11,000 power on the board for the cost of 5 Dawn altogether. Or 4 Dawn, and then you use one of the Dawn that you paid for Ulti in order to activate her ability. Finally, we have the vanilla character of Diaz Drake, 3 cost to play, 5,000 power, counter 1,000, and that's it, just a vanilla card. I do like his the manga panel they chose to show him, though. Moving on, we have our event cards, starting with the 4 cost event card, Lead Performer Disaster. Main effect, draw 1 card, then add 1 card from our Dawn deck and set it as active. Its trigger effect also does the same thing. I will say, just artwork-wise, I love that the cost kind of censors what Queen was saying to Jack, or King, so I think that's hilarious. But this is a good card. You only get 2 of it, but any card that lets you draw is a card that pays for itself, because, you lose the card to play it, but you get to draw a card, and you get an extra Dawn. Very nice. We also get 2 copies of Brachio Bomber. 6 cost to play, but its main effect KOs an opponent's character with a cost of 6 or less. Then we add a Dawn card from our Dawn deck and set it as active. Its trigger only does the Dawn part, giving us a Dawn and then setting it as active, but either way, getting that extra ramp when it comes to your Dawn deck is extremely important, considering how pretty much every card in this deck requires you to lose a Dawn. Speaking of losing a Dawn, We have Blast Breath, the only counter we have in this deck. Well, aside from the characters with counter. It is a 1 cost to play, but its Dawn is -1. So the Dawn you use to pay for it is going to be the Dawn you throw away, most likely. Your leader or one of your characters gains 4,000 power during this battle. So the good news is you'll be surviving that battle. The bad news is you're down a Dawn. Now I know what you're thinking. How am I going to beat my opponent if I'm spending all this Dawn and putting all this Dawn back into my Dawn deck? Well, this is the most important card in this deck and maybe in purple as a strategy right now. Onigashima Island. 3 cost to play, but it has an active ability that makes you rest the stage. If your leader has the Animal Kingdom Pirates type, add 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck and rest it. So, what you would do is, on your turn, you would rest Onigashima, gain that Dawn, then pay the Dawn to, play one of your cards, and then with that Dawn -1, get rid of the Dawn that Onigashima brought out for you, effectively making that Dawn a moot point. Onigashima is extremely important, and if you don't see it in your starting hand, I strongly recommend doing the mulligan rule and shuffling your hand and trying to get it again, because you need that card on your second turn. You need Onigashima to pay for powerful effects like our first super rare, King. King is a 6 cost to play, 7,000 power, with the on-play effect of Dawn -1, to KO an opponent's character with a cost of 4 or less. So King shows up, and as the right hand of Kaido, he can rightfully so get rid of something that he deems weaker than him. But finally, the card that I enjoy talking about the most for the purple deck, it is Big Fat Kaido. And I call him Big Fat Kaido because he is a 9 cost to play, 10,000 power card. He is the most powerful card in all 4 starter decks, just based on stats alone. His on-play effect sacrifices 5 Dawn. However, it allows us to KO an opponent's character with a cost of 6 or less. Then, this card will gain Rush during the turn. So there is nothing your opponent can do to respond to this. Kaido comes to the board, blows something up, and then it can immediately charge towards your opponent. The obvious strategy of the purple starter deck is to ramp up your cards as quickly as possible. Get your Dawn deck to a full 10 and use the powerful Dawn cards to destroy whatever your opponent has in your way. The downside is it can brick pretty hard if you start off with too many of your powerful cards, as well as not starting with Onigashima itself. So keep that in mind, that your results may vary with this deck, but it is a high-risk, high-reward kind of strategy. Thank you for watching as we blasted our way through the 4 starter decks. I know I already did a box opening for the main booster pack, but I still wanted to talk about all the different starter decks that will help you enhance the cards that you got from your booster packs. Thank you for watching as always, and I will see you in the next video. This is the Hero of Julios, Xing out.